on 8:30. I know it's an early start for most, however the meeting today is starting at 8:30 and that is according to the clock up on the wall. Just to highlight, councillors, this is the second iteration of the annual plan that we're going to be going through, and before we do, we're going to start with a word of prayer. If you'd like to bow your heads, you're more than welcome to. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you, Lord, for today. Thank you for the beautiful day that we've come to enjoy today. And Lord, as we discuss the items that have been in front of us, may you guide us and help us to put always the public in front. Lord, as we go through the day, may you guide us in your decisions and the decisions that have been made. In your precious and loving name. Amen. Councillors, and if there's any declarations of interest, please let it be known as we go through. The apologies we have at this present moment, we only have one apology and two late apologies. The one apology is from Councillor Ken Cooper, who at this present moment is overseas, and then we also have two late apologies, which is Councillor Ruka and Councillor Golightly, and they have stated that they will be here just running late. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Harding, Councillor Connop. All those in favour? Any opposed? Carried. Thank you, councillors. We'll notice that we have got teams online, and also to acknowledge that the meeting is being live streamed. So please, as we talk through and go through the conversations, please make sure that you're using your microphone and you speak clearly into your microphones. To the same degree, members of the public, as I've stated before, if you are in favour of something, we do encourage you to use the sign language one. If you're not in favour of it, to use the down thumbs. At the end of the day, any extra noise that goes on gets reverberated through the microphones and then becomes hard for people to hear at the other end. So we need to make sure that the message that we talk and as we communicate is as clear and concise as possible. It is good to see the members of the public here as always, and again I do apologise for the 8:30 start. I know some of you are used to 8:30 start, however with the elected members we usually start our meetings at 9 o'clock and today is 8:30. Councillor Benny, I believe you would like to move the motion.
When I said I'd like to move it, I didn't realise it was so long. I'll go through it. The Council, 1, revokes the decisions made at the 5th of June 2025 deliberations meeting on 2025-26 annual plan and fees and charges. 2, notes and considers the 792 formal submissions received on the draft 2025-26 annual plan and the draft 2025-26 fees and charges consultations. Rates changes. 3, notes that any delay in setting rates for 2025-26 would prevent Council from being able to issue rates notices by 20th of July 2025, adversely impacting customers and thus limiting revenue and requiring drawing down debt. 4, notes that a significant drop in the planned rates increases could cause a drop in the Council's credit rating and thus increase borrowing costs and trigger an amendment to the 2024-34 long-term plan. 5, notes that the revenue from the proposed district-wide universal targeted stormwater rate is required to be ring-fenced as per direction from central government, as was signalled in the 2024-34 LTP. The revenue is to cover the stormwater maintenance and upgrade costs that were previously funded from general rates and then from debt for the 2024-25 financial year. 6, approves the introduction of a district-wide universal stormwater targeted rate of $172, including goods and services tax, GST, per separately used or inhabited parts of a rating unit, SUIP, as per feedback from GST from public consultation on question 1 of the annual plan consultation document. 7, approves setting the uniform annual general charge at $901, including GST, per separately used or inhabited parts, SUIP, of a rating unit as per the financial strategy for the 2024-34 LTP, and as per feedback from public consultation on question 2 of the annual plan consultation document. 8. Declines to proceed with the proposed temporary rates relief for farmed business zoned land consulted on in the draft 2025-26 annual plan, as per feedback from public consultation on question 3 of the annual plan consultation document. 9. Approves an increase in general rates of 9.7% for the 2025-26 annual plan in recognition of the tough economic environment and the consequential financial hardships being faced by many ratepayers, noting that the draft 2025-26 annual plan include increasing general rates by an average of 10.7% as per the financial strategy approved in the 2024-34 LTP. Notes that a 1.1% reduction in the general rates increase for 2025-26 will require ongoing operational cost reductions of approximately $1 million, so as not to deviate from the benchmarks set in the financial strategy for the 2024-34 LTP. Staff propose that these cost reductions can be met by reducing operating budgets funded by general rates on a pro rata basis. 11. Approves the increase in targeted rates for 2025-26 as per the financial strategy for the 2024-34 LTP. A. Water rates of 5.7%, local government cost index LGCI plus 2.5%, which includes allowances for increased central government imposed levies, some of which will fund the regulatory functions of the Commerce Commission and the Water Services Authority, and higher than expected costs as set out in the 2025-26 annual plan consultation document. 1. An additional $15, including GST per SUIP, to the water supply charge, the availability water rate and the unmetered water rate to recover the government-imposed levy. 2. An additional $8, including GST per SUIP residential wastewater connection, an additional $5, including GST per PAN for non-residential connections to recover the government-imposed levy. 3. Increased backflow preventer rates to recover higher than expected cost increases. B. Wastewater rates of 3.2% LGCI. C. Flood protection rates for Whangarei Flood Protection Scheme of 3.2% LGCI. 12. Notes that growth will be allowed for an expected revenue from rates as per the financial strategy for the 2024-34 LTP. This budget assumption is to account for growth in new rateable properties and allows for an additional 1.3% for general rates and stormwater and 1% for water and wastewater. Request for funding. 13. Notes the submissions requesting $3.5 million in council support in 2025-26 towards the build of an indoor sports facility as part of Stage 2 of the Ruakaka Rec Centre development, and the request be considered as part of the 2027-37 LTP. 14. Notes the request from Glenbervie School for an unspecified amount of funding in the 2025-26 for a road safety barrier next to the school. A. Request staff to continue to engage with the school and the Ministry of Education with a joint plan to be agreed and presented to the Whangarei District Council Infrastructure Committee at the August meeting, subject to Ministry of Education approvals. B. Notes that implementation will be considered as part of the high-risk rural roads safety improvements budget for this corridor. 15. Slight change in this one. Approves. Now I'm removing in principle, so I'll read it from the start. Approves funding the footpath in King Street, Hikurangi, on the western side of the main road from the Four Square to Union Street through the elected members' community projects budget. A. Notes an engineer's estimate of $750,000 to $950,000 has been provided by staff and that this expenditure will be capital expenditure. B. Requests staff to develop a procurement plan to be approved at the July 2025 Infrastructure Committee. The procurement plan should encourage local contractors and drive cost-effective methods for managing the known risks. C. Request staff to bring the recommendation for contract award to the Infrastructure Committee for endorsement. D. Request staff to bring the formal allocation of budget to the following full council meeting for approval. Fees and charges. 16. Approves the increase to, it should read to the 2025-26 fees and charges as detailed within the statement of proposal. Annual plan preparation. 17, approves the preparation of the final 2025-26 annual plan and the 2025-26 fees and charges scheduled for presentation for adoption to the 26th of June meeting of Council. And 18, notes that staff will engage with the incoming Council and will recommend a rates review as part of the preliminary developments for the 2027-37 long-term plan.
Well done, Councillor Benny. I'm going to give you a couple of seconds just to sit and relax and take a quick, and are you happy to speak to it?
Seconder.
You'd like to wait for you to speak?
No, seconder.
I'll second that for you.
You second it?
Yep.
Okay.
Your Worship, I'd like to
Councillor
move an amendment, please.
You don't want him to speak to it first, or?
I'll move the amendment now so,
Yep.
it's on, so everyone can consider it.
Yep.
Following on from last meeting, the meeting actually was declined all further activity. That's why we've got the meeting today. So I'd like to move that Council approves the payment arrangements to the property ID 165276 at 551 Marsden Point Road, deferring the payment of $150,000 of land rates for each of the 2025, 26 and 2026-27 rating years to 20th August 2027, when all deferred amounts will be payable in full. I've got a second, I'll discuss that.
Do we have a seconder for that?
Can I do that?
Can't, sorry.
Second?
Councillor Mackenzie seconds that.
So this is just to tidy up what went through at the meeting last week, and we've been working with staff and came up with that recommendation. So it's all part and parcel of what's been discussed, and it's been relayed to me. It has minor, if no effect on the actual rate take for the year, because pay is the deferment of payment, not taking it away. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the explanation. Okay, councillors, would you like to, Councillor Benny, you'd like to speak to it?
Yes, very briefly, thank you, Your Worship. So I moved the motion today reluctantly in some ways, but I move it for debate and discussion only. I will be abstaining from the vote on the rates increases. That is something that the incoming council will have to justify, which I will not be a part of. So I'm asking Your Worship if we can take the request for funding separately, along with Councillor Holz's amendment, separately from the rest of the agenda.
So that, just to make sure you get that correctly, that's sections from 13 to 16. I think you've got your fees and charges in the wrong.
To 16, with that 16, yeah.
So 13 to 16 as one part, and then the rest of it is the other part. Is that correct?
That will be good. Yep. Okay, so walking to work this morning through Keffler Park, I see a number of workers preparing the footpaths in Keffler Park. As part of, I just want to look back for a second. As part of the long-term plan, councillors were challenged to reduce costs for this council. We were given a whole heap of projects to reduce the cost for. Most of them were dear to the community. Projects like the Whangarei Wharf, footpaths at Hikarangi. Yet there's no sign of any of the work that has gone on around this building for the past year and more. There was no mention of cutting costs for consultants, etc. Hence, we are in the position we are now, the frustration and the angst between council staff and council laws. We continue to work in separate silos, and it's not working. Late last night, we get an email from the Chief Executive, rightly or wrongly, telling us the repercussions if we do not pass this rates increases today. We are being challenged to find cost reductions. We need to work together to achieve that. If we work as a team and we work together, we can achieve great things. I believe that. One of the frustrations of my 8 years in council is that I will be leaving and I don't see any changes in relation to that. I don't see we've never, ever looked at consultants' costs. Our staff has increased hugely, and we are given and I'll say threats, that if we want to reduce costs, we'll stop cleaning public toilets, we'll stop mowing lawns and things like that. Councillors are put in a very precarious situation. So it's with reluctance I move this today. I'm going to be interested to listen to the debate. As I say, I will be abstaining on the rates increases. That is not my battle. Good luck to you all on this. It's a very difficult one, and I know it's something that a lot of you are reluctant to do, to impose, to listen to the submissions that we were faced in here. I think Councillor Holst has mentioned it previously. It was the most angry public reaction to something we have seen. And that anger is there for a reason. And we've got to do something about that. We can't just bully our way through and go, we know best, we will increase your rates no matter what. We need to work together as a council for the best of the people. And I think that is being lost a little bit here. So good luck in this debate. We'll see how you go.
Against Benny. Councillor Reid.
Thank you, Your Worship. If it pleases the chamber, could I make a request for taking this in parts?
We've already got it done in parts, and it's going to be the whole.
I have a modification that just may help.
13 to 16, which is what's on the screen
If I
there.
could start at the beginning.
Yep, go for it. Explain.
That number 1 stands alone. Numbers 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 12, 13, 14, and now number, where is it? 19. Any item that starts with the word notes, if they are taken together, because we are simply noting that we've received them, and the rest be taken individually.
Let me just double check to make sure there's no conflict or cause of that to be happening. I just need to make sure, because the team have actually divided it up quite clearly into separate sections each time to make it easy to be done in parts, but I just need to make sure what your request is not going to cause any problems. So just hold off fire there.
Just trying to simplify the process, Your Worship. Thank you.
Unfortunately, Councillor, number 1, which is actually probably the main thing, can't actually be taken in separate to the other items. It actually has to be included in there because it's all part of the same motion. And what I would hate to see is us to come through a situation where we revoke something and then we don't actually get it passed at the end of the day. So I need to make sure that it's actually included in it. Or if we don't revoke it, then we've got the previous motion, which is actually not providing a direction either. So we're in a slight state. We do need to include 1 as part of the whole motion. I'm sorry.
I would have thought, Your Worship, with all due respect, that if we didn't revoke to start with, the discussion would be a failure after that.
The problem is, Councillor, if we don't revoke, we won't be able to strike rates, and that's where the problem lies. So we actually need to include number 1 as part of it, and because we actually we're just getting the other team just to check the rest of them, but I will just make sure that there's going to be no actual issues with taking them in parts like that, as you've suggested. I just need to make sure, but 1 that can't be taken in parts, it needs to be included as part of the whole motion.
I came in unconfused, and now I am a little confused. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Makes sense. Cheers, mate. I only use it to draw.
That's all right.
Yeah. As I said, I would have liked to have known this beforehand, so I could actually got it done properly and got it checked out. I am seeing a slight issue with taking them away from their sections that they presently are, because one to 2 is the first two. The 3 to 12 actually deal with the rates changes, and the notes that are in there are actually relating directly to those rate changes, and therefore it does make it quite complex to read that separately. As for 13 to 16, which has already been asked to be taken as one part, which is fine because that's under the same section, and then you have 17, 18 and 19 which can be taken as one part as well. As I said, it's just if you're reading it as a whole, and that's where the problem comes in. So that's why the team have actually broken it up into sections so that they can be taken into those parts of the sections. If you break it up any further, it then becomes unable to be read properly. And then there becomes confusion. Like you can turn around and have acknowledged the notes and then not improve the reductions or the requests made by the public, and then you're actually also in the same situation that you haven't been able to strike rates. So you are in a quite it's quite complex in that respect. However, you need to follow those sections there because they've been divided in those sections for that specific reason.
Thank you, Your Worship, for making sure I'm completely confused for the rest of the meeting. My apologies for attempts at simplification.
I understand what you were trying to do. We need to keep it to that way. Councillor Holmes.
Thank you, Worship. So I've just got a couple of questions, please. So in terms of the amendment 16 on the screen now, the final few words there, when it says, when all deferred amounts will be payable in full, can I just check, is that different than what was on the table last week?
Absolutely. This is actually this one's actually been written by the staff and to actually make it comply with the legislation that they have to abide by.
This is a deferment rather than a waiver, so
Correct.
it's quite different.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. I get that. Thank you for that clarification. And the second question, or just I don't want to speak to this, so it's really a clarification. I'm still not clear why we can't take bits of this very long and very complex motion in parts, as we tried to do last week. There's a lot of this stuff that could be taken lumped together, as Councillor Reid was trying to do, and I support his attempt to try and do that. I think to try and pass this all in one lump sum, I think we'll be here till Christmas if we try and do that. It just seems to me inconceivable that we can pass everything in one go. And I would repeat what I said last week, is that can we please try and pull out the relevant bits so that we can have a proper debate about the relevant bits rather than lump it all in together. Now, I'm not the democracy expert, and I defer to our staff here who are, but can we please try and do that?
Yep. And Councillor Holmes, as I've just said before, that's why the staff have actually divided it up into sections, and those sections can actually be taken in parts. Those sections can be taken in parts. So that means when you go for the rate changes, 3 to 12 are all in a section. That can be taken as a separate section in parts. You can't turn around and divide that section up because all the items relating to that are relating to the rate changes. And same goes for the request for funding. That is actually a separate section as well. So this is why, and Councillor Benny has actually asked for that section to be taken as a part, as to the rest. So it is being taken in parts. It's just not in the way that Councillor Reid has suggested, because it actually takes it out of alignment and doesn't associate the items back to what they're actually referring to. Councillor Roka.
Thank you, Worship. Yeah, I'm going to talk specifically about point number 9. Obviously, that's the approves an increase in general rates of 9.7 for the 2025-26 annual plan in recognition of the tough economic environment and the consequential financial hardships being faced by many ratepayers. That part in particular is poignant to me. If I could vote on lower rates increase, I would, if I could. And we, as councillors, we're a representation of the community that we're a part of, our different environments, different walks of life, and I've said that before. And so, I guess just to put into perspective, I hear this term get thrown around a lot in here about council, you know, some of the decisions we've been trying to make as councillors being likened to using the credit card to buy the groceries. You know, you use the credit card now, you got to pay it back eventually. That's what our people are doing. That's what our community does. That's how we live. And so I just wanted to take an opportunity to bring that to our attention, that that's literally how our people are living in the community right now. I have friends who do their grocery shopping at the warehouse, because at the warehouse you're allowed to use Afterpay. So they Afterpay their groceries at the warehouse. You know, I've got friends who can't even buy the groceries. I've got friends who can't pay their rent. You know, rates increase, and then for everybody, the economy is difficult for everybody. You know, no matter kind of where you're sitting, it's tough for everybody. But I just wanted to bring, I guess, to the forefront those realities for the people. So, like, I've heard it a lot that, yeah, if we lessen the rates, then we have to rob poor to pay Pete, and we have to use the credit card to buy the shopping. That's how our people are living. That's, you know, people are struggling to make ends meet. I've been asked, and I don't want to start a pity party, all right? But I've been asked whether I'm running again next term. And to be honest, I don't know, because I currently can't afford to do this work. And it's a reality for a lot of people. You know, so having come into council, I had just taken on my first mortgage. It's exciting, you know, young family, boom, you got your first mortgage. That's your life goals. And then I got into council not long after that, and then my salary was pretty much cut in half. So I've taken on 2 part-time jobs to kind of try and make up that deficit. So outside of council, I have 2 part-time jobs, and then which puts you in this weird limbo space where I can't fully commit to the work necessary for council, but I also can't therefore afford to pay my bills. So I just really wanted to put into perspective the reality that a lot of people are facing right now. And so if I could vote for a lower rate strike, I would. I would most definitely, because to be honest, I'd rather see what council needs to do to manage the outgoings, to manage CapEx, to manage OpEx, than to continue to see our families struggle. I would rather that, to be honest. I know that it's more technical than that. I know this, and I understand logically that there is a lot more to go into it than what I'm currently saying, but it would have been remiss of me not to say anything. So if I could vote for a lower one, I definitely would have, but I appreciate that we have made an effort to lower the rates increase that went out for consultation, but I just wanted to bring that to the forefront. Thank you, Your Worship.
And your point has been made quite clearly. Thank you, Councillor Roca, for raising that. Councillor Olsen, just before you start speaking, I need to remind councillors, when you turn your back on other councillors who are speaking, that's actually disrespectful, so please don't do that. Please focus on the conversations that's at hand. And Councillor Olsen, you're speaking. It's your turn.
I'm just a bit taken back by your comment. Anyway, progressing. Councillor Roca, I appreciate your korero. Thank you. I have a question, and it relates to number 4. Notes a significant drop in the planned rate increases could cause a drop in council credit rating, and thus increase borrowing costs and trigger an amendment to the 24-34 long-term plan. My question is, in the short term, and I'm talking the short term until things can be reviewed, is that such a bad thing? And I just would like an answer to that.
Right. Probably Alan will probably be the best one to answer that. Alan, did you hear the question?
Yes, through the Chair, Councillor Olsen. The issue is that unless at a later point the rates are put up to compensate for this additional reduction, this revenue loss is enduring. That means it is not just for 1 year, it is for the rest of time unless council takes another step change to compensate. For example, if the rates increases reduced from 9.7 to 5, as I hear is being suggested, that's a revenue loss of $69 million over the course of this long-term plan. An increase in debt, which results from that, of $79 million, unless something is cut out of what we deliver to our public. So it's not a one-off thing unless it's topped up again later.
Okay. So you happy with that? You got that answer, Councillor Olsen?
Yes, I have. I'm going to speak now because I don't think I've got any further questions. So here we go. Right. As a councillor, this has put us in a really, really difficult position. I feel that councillors need to stand up and be counted on this. We need to pull back on a lot of plans and ideas, and for me, it's really about the needs over the wants. And we wouldn't be in this position, I feel, if some of these plans had agreed, I know that we set the plans, but really in hindsight, we probably shouldn't have approved as many as we did. We talked last week about representation of ratepayers, and, you know, if we approve this increase, to me, that's not fulfilling our obligation as councillors. We need to stand up and represent our ratepayers. I believe we should fund core services, and I will not be bullied into voting for this proposed increase. I think, and I feel with passion, that there could be more savings made within council, and we need to dig deep to find those savings so that the burden isn't placed on our ratepayers.
Thank you, Councillor Olsen. Councillor Yovich.
Just a question for the Chair. In terms of the whole agenda, why is it written in a way that if we don't have that revenue, that we do not fulfill our obligations when there are other options that could have been included, i.e., as has been alluded by other councillors, cost savings or ways we can do things better? Why? What strategic direction? I've never, from elected members, was given to management to write an agenda in such a way.
I think I understand what your question is. Simon?
The agenda's written the way it is. It reflects the situation that we're in. During the LTP that we put together, we reduced significantly the amount of cost within that LTP, and we came up with options as well to be able to keep the 17% that we included as an increase down. Works were included within that LTP, and that was approved by council, and within this annual plan to be able to achieve the financial benchmarks that we've got within the plan, and to also be able to complete the works that we've got, then this is the situation we're in. The opportunity, and we talked about the opportunity to reduce costs further by taking stuff out of the annual plan. That was back in October, November, when we talked about that. You know, if we're going to reduce or take anything out, that's the time to do it. Unfortunately, at this point in time, this is the kind of 5 minutes to 12 in terms of being able to get an annual plan and get the rates struck in time. So it just reflects where we're at. Within the agenda, I've included some comparisons against other councils to show against those councils we're pretty competitive. And within this annual plan, is not only a 1% reduction, which is $1 million, but also we've informed council that we've got to find another 5.1 million, and that will come back to you in August to be able to show you exactly what we're going to have to manage to be able to deal with that. So this annual plan includes significant kind of cuts, and it just paints the position we're in, unfortunately. I think that's it.
Your Worship.
Yep.
It was mentioned at the 11th hour that this our annual plan has been designed. We follow a regulatory process, so we know what's happening. So on that point, then part of this agenda item suggests that, rightly suggests that we do a rating review. Why was this not actually suggested as part of our LTP consultation in the last round, and not leave it till now? That's just a lack of planning. I'm only a newbie on council, so I just don't understand why, when these issues have been present and known for such a long time, that this was not raised earlier as part of the LT process, which we could have gone through the consultation. Submitters were asking for a rate review. We are going to request that, but why was it not formally done before the previous LTP, which is the question.
It's a good question, and I can say it, yes, it was actually asked, and Ellen has probably got another answer to provide to that.
Through the chair, the rate review was discussed in terms of its timing. Council chose at that time not to do it as part of the LTP process, decided to do it a year later, which unfortunately coincided with a revaluation year. So staff's recommendation was not to do it when those coincided, but it was done as led to this plan. So it's added confusion to the process. So ideally, it should be done as part of that long-term plan, is what we suggested.
Yeah, and also, Ellen, you missed off the other part there, that it's for the staff to do it fully, it requires 18 months, and it's one thing which has been left off the agenda there to actually fully explain the time frame of why it takes so long.
Thank you, Your Worship. But obviously, our management has been in this position for a long time, so that could have been part of it. In terms of page 7 and the table that has now miraculously been presented by management, why did this not go out to consultation previously? And I know it is prepared by management, so I'm not going to go into it because and actually be able to validate it in this, but why was this not presented earlier?
Yep. Good question. We'll go to Simon on that one, or is Ellen going to answer that one?
Through the chair, the information comes from the 23-24 annual reports, and they weren't available at the time of consultation.
Okay, and just to highlight, this information here has only just become available to us from my last discussions with DIA in the last couple of weeks. Oh, this is just from the annual reports? Okay.
In the terminology called annual reports, they're prepared every year. So we would have had something for 22-23. So it does astound me that you couldn't actually, but never mind. That's the position as per the agenda that we're put into. In terms of the agenda items, we received about the water supply. It seems to be a bit of confusion. We received an email on Friday morning, on the 23rd, oh, actually on May the 23rd, regarding the levies, fees and charges. Now, the proposed fee there is $399,974 for the Whangarei District, and that's made up of drinking water, wastewater and stormwater. Now, I've asked a couple of questions. Our agenda item per 11 suggests it's per soup. Now, if per soup we've got approximately 46,000, does not come out to recover the 399,000. If on that basis, it would be about $1 million worth for the $15 and the $8. Can you elaborate on that? Because then the question I was also asking was in terms of water connections. So that was 30,000. So the numbers still don't stack up. So we're trying to recover 399,994 from the public, and we seem to be, I know they say it's ring fenced, but it looks as if we're overcharging our ratepayers.
Yep. So I can clearly say to you it's not overcharging. However, we've got Andrew Carvel there who can explain the costs out perfectly, because a lot of these are actual costs which have come from central government, which is quite specific, and it's come from ComCom and DIA, if I remember rightly, but I'll let Andrew explain that.
Just firstly, though, Your Worship, this is on Water Services website, which clearly states levies, so which says it's $399,994. So have you got somewhere that you're going to direct us to actually prove these numbers?
Correct, that is correct, and that's why I'm giving it to Andrew to explain all those numbers and where those numbers come from.
Thank you, Your Worship, through the Chair. My understanding is that the costs coming from the Commerce Commission are based on their costs across the country. They've done an estimate of what it's going to take to fulfil their role as economic regulator, and then that's been apportioned in Whangarei against the water user chart, or the water users rather than the whole population. There's a split between how the costs are spread between wastewater and water. I think the total that we have in the agenda is 526,000, of which 363k is passed on to the drinking water users and 147,000 is passed on to the wastewater connections.
Okay, so have you got I think what Councillor Jovic is, have you got the evidence to show where those charges are being implied to us from? Has it written in a letter?
No, I haven't got those at hand. It's something I could no doubt provide.
So we have an important agenda and you don't have any information for us, Your Worship? I mean, really?
Councillor Jovic, I do know the team have actually got this information. And
Well, no, we've just been told, sorry, Your Worship. It was clearly told that we do not have the information.
On hand, he said.
This is an important meeting.
Yep.
And no one has come with information.
Alan, you've got a response to this?
Through the Chair, just note, this has been included in previous agendas and the way through the process. This agenda was just summarising the decisions we made. The information is definitely provided to councillors previously.
I think what Councillor Jovic is referring to is he'd like to actually know where that actual information is. Can the team actually provide that information, or have 5 minutes to provide that information for the councillor?
I'll certainly see what I can achieve in 5 minutes, but...
I've had a few years to do the annual plan, sir. So in terms of a question proposing, we've had 2 amendments. So under the process standing orders, we're not able to actually propose a reduction in the rates because of the 2 amendments that have already been, so one has to fall over first before I can then propose a reduction in the rates.
That is correct. We have an amendment on the table first, which we must deal with.
Okay. Another question is non-core assets. Has any investigation gone into what what non-core assets we have that we could actually remove from the council portfolio?
Every long-term plan produces a whole list of items which can actually be removed and also gone through with the elected members, as it was with us. Alan, you've probably got some more information on that.
Again, Your Worship, I think you've hit the nail on the head. The long-term plan process, there's a chance to run through that. Annual plans are simply a continuation of the decisions made through that process. And while more could be brought to the table, that could have been done back in September, October, when this process started.
And just to highlight, through the long-term plan, there was an additional $6 million added to that of projects that the elected members actually wanted. So just be highlighting that. While we've gone out for consultation on the long-term plan, we agreed to what the rates would be, and now the annual plan here is showing we can only do minor tweaks to that, And again, that is a process which we've actually already gone through and everything in there. Andrew, how are you going with those figures? Still going through? Okay. Councillor Jovic?
Oh, that's interesting about the non-core assets, because just had an example last week, is then why is staff making decisions on some of our properties that are in line with a financial strategy with non-core house properties, and they're not being brought to councillors' attention? So that was my query, is question why, you know, if such a proposal has been undertaken, and something as recent as last week in terms of a sale of a property that's been requested by an organisation in our community in the last year, and council management and SLT have decided to that it is now a core asset, when I doubt that I question it is. So I just, you know, I'll question around our efficiencies and our procurement plan process.
Yep. Okay, so this might be a Dom one for property side of things, or is it still going to be Ellen? Yep.
Through the chair, probably the two of us, but I don't have the detail of what's being proposed or discussed.
Yeah, that's okay. It's more, I think what Councillor Jovic is referring to is when property comes up and the community are actually renting a property at the present moment, or so to say, are wanting to purchase the land, which might be owned by council. What determines, or who's determined what is core and what is not core?
So any purchase or sale would be through council, through chair.
Alan, you got anything else to add to that?
Just that we are managing the property portfolio in line with the previous policy decisions set by council. Until such time as council choose to change that policy, we'll continue to do so.
The question is, why did an organisation in our community come to us a year ago, and it was only recent chasing inquiries with the property team, and then the answer was back that SLT decided that they should lease the property. And so that is contrary to, in all due respects, our deputy mayor's, our deputy CEE comment.
Yeah. I believe what you're actually asking, councillor, is, and we need to keep it back to what the topic here is in relation to the annual plan. You're asking is why are items excluded from elected members' knowledge over items which they can actually make a decision over. And at this present moment, the staff have said that they've been working to a policy and procedures. Now, the correct answer should probably be is something we have to do as elected members and identify if we've changed our priorities to what was originally set out. Now, that option hasn't come to us as at this present moment, yet we have already indicated that when this property came available, and this, I believe the team have been working on it within that particular reception. In relation to other properties, we have other properties which we've got different tenants who have expressed interest in, and they have also come back to the members at times to have that discussion over. As I said, I need to keep you back onto the topic of the annual plan side of things.
Yes, no, the questions were, and just relating to the annual plan, because there's been quite a few statements stated here by management, and you know, the scaremongering out there, as Councillor Benny did allude to an email last night, the way that this agenda has been written, and that I question who is actually writing this report, because you know the credibility on this that has been put through is very questionable, and we are accountable to our ratepayers. So, you know, I do question why the agenda has been written in such a way, which I alluded to earlier. I won't make any further statements. I won't make a statement now. I'll just ask questions, and I'll leave that statement till later.
Andrew, have you got an answer for the questions that were asked?
Yes, I can provide some further context to it. So that we were written to by Tamara Arawai in November last year. They indicated that they were going to put charges together. They have a table on their website where they've gone through and set out how these levies are set. For Whangarei, as Councillor has indicated, they've basically prorated across the country based on a district's population. Whangarei was based on a population of 96,678 people, with a total charge of $400,000. The figures that make up our total within the report include the MB contribution of 125,000. So that's the sum of the two is the total cost of the levy.
Sorry, Your Worship, but how does, I think clarifying back to the agenda item, in terms of the dollars wise, how does that equate to, how does that add up? I mean, you talk, is it on soups or connections? And
So what we originally were informed by Te Matawa Wai and ComCom, and I'll just refer back to the letter that you all had received, which came up to a total of $5 per user. It's actually $5 per person of the district, which comes out to roughly $500,000. That $500,000 is then divided up into solely for those who are using it, which works out to roughly, if you go by the houses numbers, roughly $15 per house per year. This is a fee which is directly, and I know Alison's looking there, she's got a very quick answer, she can go through it. However, this is the information that we have received in a letter and was distributed to all elected members. Alison?
Okay, so what happened is that the amount was given as a total amount and then divided between the three waters activities. So the water activity got a certain amount, just over 300,000, and it was recommended that that was added to the supply charge. There's about 25,000 connections to the water services, so that's how that charge was split, was by how many connections there were to the water services activity. Same thing was done for wastewater, and we split that cost between the connections to the wastewater connections, which is about another 25,000, not by the whole district, just for those, how do you say, those
Using.
rating units that benefit from wastewater and from water. And there's a very small amount that went to stormwater, and that's included in the district-wide targeted rate.
Okay.
but
Councillor,
the agenda says per soup.
Yep. And if you read, it says per soup to the water supply charge. So those people who are getting charged the water supply charge will get a $15 charge increase. If you are not on the water supply, you will not get the $15 charge. Same goes for the wastewater and the pan charge. Those are specifically for wastewater and water supply charges.
Can you clarify the number?
Alison, can you clarify the number, please? It was, as I said, I understand it was $5, over the whole lot was $5 per person of the whole district, and it could only be charged to those who are actually using the fees, using the services.
So how it's charged is how we recommended that it be charged for those that are in the area of benefit of those services that we're providing. So the water services is for those rating units that are connected to the water services, similarly for the wastewater.
As Councillor Reid said at the beginning, he was confused, and I tell you what, nothing's changing. The lack of clarity and validation is amazing.
Appreciate that comment, Councillor. Again, the information has been provided out regularly, and we have made it very, very clear, because this is charge that's been provided by central government, or should I say Te Matawa Wai and ComCom, on to Council. Councillor Mackenzie.
Some questions, Your Worship. Alison, while you're here, through the Chair, around valuations. How many of the new valuations have been contested by ratepayers?
Just over 800, 860 or something like that, yeah.
And how many of those remain unresolved to date?
We've only dealt with about 100 of them to date.
So am I right in thinking if we strike a rate, there will be people who don't know what rate will be applied to them because their rate contesting of rate of valuations have not been settled yet?
So probably the question that you want to pose...
The question that I've asked is the one that I want to ask, Your Worship, yeah.
Well, I'm just, Councillor Mackenzie, what you're asking there is probably a bit complex to answer. So what I'm saying to you is the question that you're actually asking, just hear it with me here, is the question you're actually asking, Alison, is what will be done with the people who are still in query with their rates?
No, that was not my question. My question was, if we strike a rate today, there will be people who do not know what their rate will be because they are still contesting their valuations.
So the answer is that we'll set the rates based on how the rating information database is on the 1st of July. If after that the rating valuation changes, then we will reset the rates. And we will let them know of their options when we send out the rates notice for the first instalment.
Okay, it doesn't seem ideal. Thank you.
Councillor Holmes.
Thank you, Wisha. Another question from me, please. Look, it's not the role of elected members to go through an annual budget line by line. That's the role of the staff, and I'm not looking to step into that position. There's a clear delineation between governance and management. That's not governance. That's the CEO's job, effectively. Whereas, and given the conversations that we've had around this table only a week ago, where a number of elected members expressed concerns about the level of increases, and that was clearly heard, I think, by the CEO and by staff. So the question is, why, having heard those concerns, have we effectively been giving an ultimatum to sign off or else? The confidential legal opinion is very well written and I'm sure, is absolutely watertight, and I thank the staff for doing that. But given the concerns around the table, the question for the CEO is, why did you feel it was necessary to come back with a legal opinion that says, sign off or these are the consequences, rather than come back and say, I hear you, we're working on some alternatives, and these are the alternatives. Now, I appreciate time is very short, but it does effectively feel like, and I know this is emotive and I don't mean to be, that we're having a gun held to our head, sign off or else.
Yeah. Your point is definitely heard there, Councillor Holmes. Simon.
I was asked about the 5%, so I got a legal review around that. We talked about it at the last meeting, and we've talked about it at previous briefings with the councillors, that we were getting tight on time to be able to get the rates sorted. And when we went out and consulted, we talked about the degree of latitude that council had in relation to changes post-consultation and what would require us to reconsult. So that's providing that additional information to you is trying to answer the question, or trying to provide additional information, because at the last meeting there was so much discussion about 5%, and I don't think a full understanding of the implications or difficulties that council is in trying to vary from what we had as a consultation document. So it's trying to be helpful, not as you suggest.
May I comment on that?
If you can speak to it if you'd like to, or you'd like to ask another question.
Just, no, I've not got another question, but I feel I need to just respond to that. I think to suggest that councillors around the table did not fully understand the implications of their actions is a bit rich, to be honest. And I can only speak for myself, not for others. I've held positions, CEO positions in other organisations. I've got a pretty good handle on what the implications are, thanks. But I appreciate your concern. So I understand the implications. My question was, and the 5% is a bit of a red herring, maybe. I don't know whether the number's 5% or 7% or what the number is. My question really was, having heard the concerns expressed by a number of councillors around this table that we couldn't live with these numbers, effectively is what we're saying, why it wasn't felt necessary. And I suppose this is a question also to you, Your Worship, as being the leader of this council. Why it was felt unnecessary to come back with options, rather than just, there's a legal opinion, sign it. And I think that's the disappointing thing for me. We're governors of this organisation, we're not general managers. Our role is not to look at the budgets and say, well, what about that number? What about that line? What about that project? Our role is governance. Now, if genuinely every line has been gone through by the staff, and there is nothing to be found, or nothing to be rearranged, or different financial models, whether it be borrowing some or deferring, then that's fine. And I got to say, I came into the meeting today with a different view, but I'm going to take a lead from Councillor Benny, and I won't be here next time either. I will probably be abstaining from this also, but it doesn't stop me from expressing my real concerns about this process now. So make of that what you will. It was kind of half question, half ramble, half statement, half stream of consciousness, but anyway.
Your point has been taken. I do know that Simon would like to respond to one part of the question there.
Yeah, we heard loud and clear the challenge and the difficulty associated with the rates, and that's why we've reduced from 10.7 to 9.7, so we did that. And also the 5.1 million that we've talked about, that we've said that we'll try and manage that and find a home. So those two elements, we were listening loud and clear, but by the last agenda, we'd put everything on the table that we could see we could. So, sorry about that.
Councillor Connor.
Thank you. I'm just going to speak to this one, the amendment. I didn't want to have to be here today. The mayoral chains show the path that we've followed. For better or worse, we are here now. We are following decisions that have put us here. We are guided by them, and now we are encouraged to forge ahead. These include past engagements from our residents, who have provided their voices for their desires and needs. Staff work with this information and provide those voices to us regularly through these agenda items, because we cannot throw away the wants and needs that have been given to us, as well as recognize those now. And the past decisions help guide us. We are faced with some costs that we have limited control over, regularly given to us by central government. We all, and I hear it, we all want reduced rates. The way rates are set up is a behemoth. I do not agree with the way it works, but it is what we have, and there is probably a better way to do it, but this is what we've got. We need to continue to forge ahead with the projects we might want and need. Sorry, I wrote that down wrong. We continue to forge ahead with things that we want as well. There have been things that in the recent past we have supported pushing forward into, such as the elected member projects, community projects, which has been noted in the agenda item, and even the CCTO, which a lot of our residents did not support. And yet we forge ahead with these. Yes, these will go back and support the community, absolutely. This is what we all want to do. And yes, the CCTO, hopefully, but may, support us with our rates in the future. But we still are not clear of that because it's only being set up at this point in time. Again, we don't want raised rates, but if we reduce the costs for the services we blindly receive, the loss will become seen and dissatisfaction will become obvious. Already, for an example, noxious weeds cover Whangarei District Council properties, not necessarily the other areas that Regional Council may deal with, not dockland and not any other area or private land, but our land infects those areas with the lack of control, the cost which we have not put to that area. something that rates could deal with. We have all gone through so many projects that we want and need, and we've come up with a list that, as the Mayor has mentioned recently, added another $6 million onto the long-term plan, which, absolutely rightly, the community deserves. My concern is that if we go back to our core projects, so many community groups, so many communities and spaces and things that we really, well, actually right now, probably take for granted, will be lost, which will put everybody in a worse off situation, adding more costs to ratepayers in their own pocket rather than through rates. While more collective engagement with those groups actually will benefit so many people. We've seen it in so many events that bring thousands of people together, including tourists that come into our area, which everybody's been fighting for sports and all those bits and pieces that, you know, are, and this, it's the icing on the cake that we need to be able to support. We've all sat down and gone through the items where we have had to let some things go by the wayside. I've seen it, and this term I've not overly pushed for things that I need to see, that I want to see, that our environment is paying because we aren't. I'm being patient, and I don't like the cost, but sometimes we have to grin and bear it, and I see the loss of if we reduce it too much, we're going to lose the services that people so basically need.
Thank you, Councillor Connop. Councillor Peters.
I want to speak in support of Councillor Connop and also the hard work that Councillor Hulse has done. And as you know, I'm also very much listening to Councillor Rooker's arguments. For me, and I, you know, as you know, I've spent many, many years supporting people who are poorly off or struggle to pay many things, including their rates. However, as governors, and this is to Councillor Holmes and others, as governors, we need to have the long view. We need to continue to have a place to live that actually looks to the challenges of the future. If you look at our debt ratio, it is a lot less than other councils, and I'm very much in favour of trading in the black. And coming into the council, I find that we don't. Only Sweden does. But even so, we need to look at the challenges, and they are coming. Councillor Connop is right. There are many challenges in our future that we see. As councillors, we can see those challenges and we know they need to be dealt with. So my encouragement is to pass this rate, as painful as it is. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Peters. Councillor Mackenzie.
I'll just speak to it, Your Worship. So I'm torn by this, but I think I agree with quite a lot of other councillors' sentiments. Councillor Holmes summed it up very well in terms of the process. And I feel, unfortunately, that staff have misread the sentiment in the public and misread the feedback that councillors are given also. So there's not just anger out there, as Councillor Benny has alluded to, but there is genuine hurt that Councillor Ruka so eloquently spoke to. For the last 2 years, I've been voicing concerns around the introduction of the stormwater rate, and I know that it's imposed by central government, and we have to do it. But previously, stormwater was funded out of general rates, and in year one of the LTP, we said, oh, we'll debt fund it, and then we'll figure out what to do after that. I asked for other options to come back to the table instead of making a new rate, and I was ignored. And then when I said I'd been ignored, I was told that I hadn't been ignored. I mean, that's gaslighting of the first degree. Why have staff not come back with other options? Debt fund the stormwater rate, because effectively what it's doing, we've got a 9.7% general rate increase, and then you've got another $172 per SUIP. That's another roughly 6%. So we're talking about another 16% rate increase after we just had 17.2 last year. And when I talk about misreading the public sentiment, it's been very clear. It's been clear through the hearing process, where you've got a councillor who's sat here for 33 years and said that that was the worst day that he had ever seen. And then clear concern from councillors, but no response or solutions provided. Only, this will happen if you don't do this. And, you know, I've been such a supporter of staff for the last 2.5 years, because I think that supercharging staff and getting staff going on the work that they need to do is the way to motivate and to get this organisation to hum. But they've just totally misread it. We went out with a consultation document that suggested 58.5% rate increases for some households. And we saw that a few days before we had to pass it. And we were told if we didn't pass it, the timeline would be off. That's always the timeline. And in retrospect, we should have stopped it right there. We shouldn't have passed that. That was crazy. Yeah, and here we are. We had the comparison of the preferred options for the consultation document and the 10.7% and the 9.7% options presented to us on Thursday, 5 minutes before the meeting. That is fundamental information for governors to make decisions about the rates, and we didn't have it. So, I'm sorry to say, but I can't support that section of the resolution because the process has been flawed. And I appreciate maybe staff have had their eye off the ball with other things, but from where it stands in my position, we needed that crucial information earlier to make better decisions.
Thank you, Councillor Mackenzie. Councillor Reid.
A question, Your Worship, if I may.
Yep.
Through the chair. If this fails today, where to then?
Okay, that's a legal question, and I will pose that one to Simon or Rebecca or Alan. One of these two will answer it quite clearly. Alan?
I'll just ask Your
I'll
Worship,
start the
because we need
response
to be
from
aware
a
about-
process.
Yep, that's correct, and that's what Alan's just going to answer.
I'll start with some of the response, but not all of it. But fundamentally, unless we have an annual plan, we cannot set rates. And if the parameters agreed at this meeting to where you want the rates to go, it may be that we can't proceed to set a rate because this will be ultra vires, because it would trigger various other parts of the process through the Local Government Act in terms of having to do an LTP amendment first. So we will be in limbo. What that would mean is we can't set rates, we get no funding in the door coming through as far as starting next year. We would have to debt fund that revenue. When we do set a rate, we'd have to change the instalments probably to 3 rather than 4. We'd also be unable to invoice and collect rates on behalf of the Regional Council, and they'll be forced into the same position.
Okay, thumbs up, that answers the question. Councillor Holst, you've spoken to the amendment. Have you got asking a question?
I'm going to speak to the motion.
Can we at least finish off the amendment first?
Yep.
Okay. Councillors, we've got an amendment on the table here which we need to go through and actually clearly vote on to now bring it into the full motion. Many of you have already spoken on the original motion. I appreciate that. Separating those two out was complex and hard for many people. The fees and charge, or it's not fees and charges, it's the option that Councillor Holst is putting there is a very logical case. And when he proposed it last week, it made logical sense. It was not causing a major change in rates. What it was doing was actually allowing them to be deferred so that they could be still collected, however collected within a couple of years, and that would be reimbursed all back. So it wasn't in my mind, there was clearly not anything wrong with the way the motion was written. However, the staff have come back and actually explained it more clearly and written it to more technical side of things to make sure it meets all of their criteria. So I appreciate the staff doing that. On the other items that have been listed, there's been a lot of things that have been listed in here, and Councillor Connor, you're absolutely right when it comes to there is so much of our district that we're having to pick up. And while I know that elected members don't want to hear about it, I can clearly tell you that Cyclone Gabriel, Cyclone Hale have made a huge impact to our district. So much so that I know that Councillor Reid and the infrastructure team are still in the process of cleaning up messes from that. And that's because of previous cutbacks in the roading. And one of the areas that we can't cut back on is our roading area. When I talked to a member of the public, he sent me an email, so I said, okay, look, I'll go and have a chat to you. And I had a chat to him and went through the process. I said, okay, well, what do you want cut back? I said, do you want the city safe cut back? No, definitely not. Okay, so do you want the streets to stop being cleaned? No, definitely not. Do you want us to stop fixing up roads or not do the potholes as much? No, definitely not. So when people turn around and say, what is the core services of council? Those are the core services of council. Libraries are core services of council. That is something the public have specifically asked they do not want cutbacks on. So we are in a very fine line. And while I appreciate the concerns and they have been raised by the elected members, very much so, I can clearly tell you that when I say we are running close to the line, we are running very close to the line. The interesting thing is, and I will come back to when Councillor Jovic asked the question about the chart on number 7, the credit ratings that are up the top there, 18 councils were reduced their credit ratings because of their long-term plan decisions. 18 councils. Whangarei was not one of them. Whangarei was not one of them because Whangarei took a very positive approach to the way of dealing with debt, dealing with making sure that our depreciation was taken care of, making sure that the costs going forward, we were covering the costs. These are important aspects. And when it comes to the credit rating, that's a huge aspect. And they took that into consideration significantly. So for our credit rating not to be cut back because of that was a major aspect. I know full well that when I've talked to elected members and they've asked about the different charts and things like that, I appreciate that it takes a bit of time to go through them, and I acknowledge that for not everyone it's straightforward and easy. Understand that. When Councillor Mackenzie turned around and highlighted a time factor, I asked for this chart, and the CE knows this, I asked for this chart a couple of weeks ago before our council meeting. And I got told we don't have the time for that. I know because the team are working on so many other things at the same time. So I produced a spreadsheet which did the calculations myself, and they were best guess. They weren't perfect by any shape or form. However, they would give me the best guess of the idea of what was going to happen. And then the staff produced the chart on page 8, which is great to see. We have, in the last 3 years, had to deal with not only Cyclone Gabriel and Storm Hale, we've also had to deal with 3 waters. We've had to deal with the extra levies put in by Local Waters Done Well. We've actually had to also deal with the future development strategy, a document which I said at the time I was uncomfortable about going through because I did not feel we needed to do it, yet by legislation we were required to do it. We have picked up so much extra stuff required by the government to actually achieve and do. And that is because we're a Class 2 council, which basically means we're in that category where we need to be dealing with those things. On top of that, last term in the LTP, we picked up JREG, which is the Joint Regional Economic Development Group, and also the CCTO to develop for properties and also to be a commercial arm for council. While these were huge costs, these have also produced huge benefits back to our district. Being part of JREG alone has meant that we've been able to put in a regional deal and been able to and actually significantly show to the central government that we are working together as a region. Not just about Whangarei, but it's about a region. That alone put us in the runnings for having a regional deal. The fact that we are working together right now on the Local Waters Done Well with the 3 councils, going through the information, making sure that we can clearly identify the concerns of our ratepayers, each one of the council's ratepayers, because look, Councillor Rooker, you're absolutely right. We are in a situation where a lot of people are struggling. And when we're dealing with things like this, we're in a situation where we have to make sure that we take everyone's views into account. And it is very, very hard when you have been imposed a lot of things from central government onto us. Things that we have to pick up and we have to do. And we have to put staff time into, which takes them away from their other services that they're doing, which means then they're late on other things. So it is one roll-on effect to another. So I am very, very conscious of the amount of work the staff actually do and the work that they're doing behind the scenes. And as the Mayor, I have made my effort to make sure I can make their job as easier and simple as possible so that the processes get done faster. And it was a huge benefit when Councillor Jovic highlighted about properties and the commercial property side of things, when we can come in and start getting those discussions going through with council. To the same degree, it's important when Councillor Reid brings up the infrastructure stuff that actually needs to be dealt with. Just as much as it's important to hear from our community when there is issues out in their community and they're feeling that the council staff aren't dealing with, we need to hear about these so that we can actually get the right services onto them. As I said, cutting anything is going to make a drastic effect to things. And we need to be very, very conscious of that. I'm going to go to Councillor Harding.
E te kura matua, tēnā koe, and thank you for your opening prayer this morning, and really appreciate your kōrero right now. Ngā mihi. I was a bit quiet because I thought I'd asked all my questions last Thursday, and then I've just seen something maybe that I might have missed, and apologies if it's all been covered previously, but in number 11, number 3, just around the increased backflow preventer rates to recover higher than expected cost increases, there's no figure there, so is that already covered within that 5.7, or is there another dollar that's meant to be added on that?
If you look at page 13 of the document, you will see a little breakdown of backflow preventer charges and showing where the cost increases are. You'll also see what the items listed there. So you should see that on page 13 of the document. Good question to raise, and it is all there.
So it's an addition to the 5.7?
If you have a backflow preventer charge, this is a backflow preventer, this is what the charges will be, and it itemises it out towards what size connection you're dealing with.
I don't really know what size connections so...
Yeah, not everyone has a backflow preventer. Some places do. Any place which has got a swimming pool has a backflow preventer on it. So basically what it means is the water doesn't go back into the public water system.
And that's an annual charge?
Correct.
Oh, if I could just speak to the kaupapa now, e te kura matua. You know,
we've made a reduction, 10.7 to 9.7. So there is a sign that we've a little bit listened. We've reduced from what we went out with in terms of consultation. And really bad timing around taumata arohai, because that wasn't included last time, wasn't it? So this is just beats up on us right now at a time that we don't need it. But we have to cover it, because I would have been all for 9.7 if it was just 9.7. And I remember when we had the presentation, and I said, so is that 9.7 plus 5.7 plus? No, because, you know, some of it's just targeted. But it is. It is 9.7 plus 5.7 plus 15 plus 8 plus 5 plus a whole lot. And I feel, you know, it's just a really hard one to swallow. There's no new way to kind of advocate this positively, otherwise land all of that other bit on taumata arohai. Our council rates were this 9.7. Apart from the stormwater one, that's ours. We own that one. So did we even, like Councillor McKenzie said, come up with the option, maybe we do cover it by debt this time around, because taumata arohai came in with theirs. Is this the right time to land it? You know, is that a kind of option? And I feel like, I don't know whether we've come late this year or there's just a lot more to deliberate. We don't want to throw things out so badly in terms of timing, but we did need a lot more on this kaupapa. We needed to start it a little bit earlier so that we can then look at these kind of options. So I'm not sure that we've quite done our homework and our preparation. I mean, you know, governance is about planning and oversight, operations, execution, and getting things done. And, you know, we are the what and the why, and our staff and our management are the how and the when. And we're just not getting an alignment. And, you know, I was working with some of our senior managers around their organisation cultural strategy, and it is so cool. It is amazing. I said, why can't we, that's what we need for our elected members. No, well, elected members can do what elected members want, and what if it clashes with the culture of the strategy for the organisation? And I could see it. I thought, you're right, because it's likely that we will disrespect it in a particular manner. But boy, do we need to get something aligned, e te kora matua, around our respect and trust for each other, our the bridge between the cultural strategy for the organisation and that for the elected members. Elected members, well, we have code of conduct. Ours is all about compliance. There's nothing, you know, kind of to help change your mindset and your behaviour around respect, and staff have to do that too. Don't bring us stuff that makes it look like we will get shot with a bow and arrow if we don't do this, because that just pisses us off. Sorry about it. It does. And we will just go, nah, thank you. Get us something else. And I feel like I nearly want to pass this today, but not quite. We're not quite there. E te kora matua. And I can hear it in all of the councillors and elected members here today. And I don't think our staff should fear us, because we're trying to do the best for what's been hammered to us from our residents, from our ratepayers, from our whānau, from our tamariki. So, you know, when we first were elected in and we had to put that 17.1, I thought we were going to get mugged in the streets, you know, because bloody hell. And then this is a little bit more respectful, but we've got all these other monkeys climbing on our shoulders, and we just need to try and clear them somehow through our chief executive. And I think we're nearly there, but just not quite. Mihi ana kia koutou.
Appreciate that, Councillor Harding. Councillor Lightly.
turn it
I have a question.
Yep.
If this amendment doesn't go through today, can we then, motion, can we then introduce an amendment that, for a lower rate increase today?
Okay, as was highlighted by the team, if anything was to be done lower, then we'd be facing a whole pile of consequences to those actions. And has been highlighted that anything lower than what we've presently got will put us in jeopardy of even having not been able to meet budgets, which means we wouldn't meet our long-term plan, which means we wouldn't be able to cover the costs.
Okay, understand that, but this has got the potential, I'm feeling, that it's not going to pass. I mean, I'm not going to be predetermined or anything, but so I'm just kind of, just figuring out what next.
Yep. Councillor, you got a question? Yep.
Yes, please. It's following on from Deb's comments around the percentages. Now, it's my understanding that the percentages that are going up are on it. Obviously, they're individual spaces. So if you add them together, it's a false representation of the actual total. So if you put 5% on $100 and 5% on $1 million, it's the percentage rise. Whilst it's 5%, it's negligible. Is that correct with those percentages? Obviously, I'm just being with. General rates rise the 9.7.
Yeah, so when you do a 9% rate increase, you do remember you have to take out your UAGC, which is a 901, and then you have 9.7% on top of that, of the other side of things. And when you compare that rate increase, yes, if you've got a lower value property, it will be a lot smaller increase as versus if you've got a higher property. That's what you're asking, is that correct?
I'm more asking about the different percentage rises that are going up, obviously, across the board in different spaces. It's a different percentage, so you can't add them together. You have to add them afterwards. Yeah, you put the percentage on, and then you add that to the total.
If you are using those services, then yes, they would be added on to. For example, the 172 is across all councils, all council properties, whereas the $15, which is the water charge, is only across urban water properties which are on water supply.
Yes, but I mean, what I'm trying to say is, and I ask the question is, the general rate rise would be 9.7. A rate rise of 5% on another targeted rate is on that, and then you add those two together, so it doesn't actually show the total percentages. They're different percentages, aren't they?
I see where you're coming from, and yes, you are correct, yeah. Councillor Yovich, you got a question?
Yeah, question. Just following on from the backflow preventer rates. This is an annual charge. Now, where I'm coming from on that is we've received a letter and we've been told we've got to spend $6,000 on one, but then in that same letter it says it's a 5-year survey. So the annual charge, is that 5 years of collections to do a survey on each property, or what's the situation there?
Andrew, are you able to answer that question since this all fits into your category?
I can't give anything specific, sorry, on a particular connection or.
However, can you explain on page 13? Those are annual charges, are they not?
Those are annual charges, yes.
So, okay. So even though the annual survey, a survey is done every 5 years, we have to pay every year, and just trying to seek some clarity on what's the process within council in regards to the checking. What do the ratepayers get for that annual charge?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I can't respond to that question. I will have to refer to our water manager.
I will see if we can get an answer for you for that question, Councillor Yovich. They will let us go through things. Councillor McKenzie, you got a question?
Yes, a procedural question for clarification. So when this is put, this will be voting on the Councillor Holz's amendment.
Correct.
Will this be taken in parts, or will this be taken as a whole and then the substantive motion taken in parts?
There is only one amendment, which is the add of one item.
Realise that.
Yep, so that will be as that part, that one piece, then that will become, if it's approved, that will become part of the substantial, which we will then take in parts.
So we're only voting on 16.
Correct. To include it.
It's all part of the same motion, Your Worship.
Councillor Holz's amendment was to add just that piece.
I realise that, but it's all one motion, right? Is it not? They're all individual motions.
Councillor Holz's amendment was to add that one piece to the original motion. We first need to approve that one piece.
Okay, fine, that's fine.
Before we can go to the next.
Thank you.
Councillor Olsen, you got a question?
I do, Your Worship. As far as backflow preventers go, for people who live rurally that have a pool, will they be subjected to this
No.
fee? No,
So
because they're not
backflow
hooked into the way. Yep, that's
Back,
all I want.
as I stated previously, backflow preventers are there to stop contaminated water or possible contaminated water from infiltrating into the public water system. Councillor Reid, you got a question?
No, I'd like to speak, Your Worship.
Yep.
Thank you. Before I get cut off at the pass and you call for the vote and I don't get to open my big trap. Thank you very much. Just for clarity, I will be standing at the next election because there is a lot of work we've got to do. Councillor Harding has alluded to the culture between councillors and staff, and she is 100% on the button. We need to review how we operate, and I'll make that part of my mission next term, should I be fortunate enough to be back. How we do business. We need better interaction. We need better communication. We do not need to be sitting here and being told that we cannot take a paper in parts. We cannot change anything because of the legal ramifications and the way it has been written. In that case, Your Worship, being a pragmatic sort of a bloke, it's a bleak day out there, and I think today could be a bleak one for this council. I'm very concerned the penning of the agenda is going to skew the vote. Due to the grouping of the items, I will have to vote against parts of it that I actually want to succeed. That is not democracy, that's a farce. This is completely unfair on us as governors, on our ratepayers as the recipients of our decisions, and on our staff who have to put up with our less than pragmatic thinking on occasion. And I feel for everybody, particularly the group of governors in this room. A lot of us take pay cuts. We've heard guys struggling to live. Councillor Connop, I don't know how the hell you do it. We're in a really invidious position here, and I've just got to apologise to anybody who is upset by my vote today. We've got to take a bloody good look at how we do apologies. We've got to take a real good look at how we do our business, because we are not meeting the expectations of our ratepayers. If it was straight 9.7%, I think I would be up for that. Our sector splits have been rearranged to a much more palatable position, I think, than they were last round. But the add-ons, I can understand the stormwater and the Hika flood scheme. They are crucial links. The rest of it, Councillor Jovich has just alluded to the backflow preventer rate, $6,000, pays it for 5 years, gets one serve. 30 grand to check on a backflow preventer? Come on. That just does not make sense to me. And if that is right, we are wrong. We've got to look at this. There's lots we've got to look at. So hence my mission in the next 3 years of council will be to either oversee, I'm not going to stand for mayor, that's one task you can keep, my friend. I do not want to know that. But by crikey, I'm going to be here and I'm going to be asking our CE to meet with senior staff, i.e. our chairs, to promote a better culture and a better understanding and a better way of doing things for everyone in this district. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Reid. So we will have the amendment very, very clear, to make it very clear so everyone understands. This is just voting on Councillor Hulse's amendment. Division has been called. All those in favour of the addition of Councillor Hulse's amendment, please raise your right hand.
Councillor Jovic, Councillor Ruka, Councillor Reid, Councillor Peters, Councillor Olsen, Councillor Mackenzie, Councillor Holmes, Councillor Harding, Councillor Hulse, Councillor Golightly, Councillor Connop, Councillor Benny, His Worship the Mayor.
Unanimous, thank you very much. That's been approved. We are going to take a 10-minute break at this point, and then we'll come back in. There are some questions that have been asked that the team want to be able to find information for, to be able to respond back to them. So we're just going to take a 10-minute break at this present moment.
Your Worship, I've signalled that I was going to speak to the motion. I haven't spoken yet.
Yeah, I realise that, Councillor. I'm just, as I said, we've just got to have some questions answered by the team. They need to be able to answer some of these questions.
Worship, I don't want to be awkward here, but, general procedure is we adjourn the meeting for half an hour. And so we can go back and discuss what we need, and the senior leadership team with you or someone can plot the way forward. We need to get together.
Okay, if you're happy to do 30 minutes, that's fine. I was conscious that there is another meeting planned for 10:30. Yep, so we will adjourn for 30 minutes to allow the team to be able to answer those questions, and then we'll come back. Just find your seats. Anyway, please resume your seats. Councillor Benny. As we had left the meeting, just to give you a summary, the amendment had been moved and seconded and approved. That had come through. So now into the substantial motion. Councillor Hulse.
Your Worship, during the adjournment, politicians and our CE have had a discussion, and I'd like to put a procedural motion that the meeting be adjourned, and the issue lies on the table until tomorrow, when our CE will call us a special meeting.
Councillor Hulse, just to clarify, what you're actually saying is you're asking for it to be adjournment till next week, so that we can have a meeting tomorrow.
We're going to meet tomorrow, but if our CE will come back with a meeting time, which is, the council will meet with the CE and staff tomorrow, and next week he'll schedule a meeting, and that'll be advised to us.
Correct, that is correct. Yep, so.
Thank you.
Yep. We've had a procedural motion been moved. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Golight, you second it. All those in favour? Any opposed? Carried. Thank you, councillors. We'll now adjourn the meeting. As this is an adjournment of the previous meeting, we will close our meeting, and as I've opened in a word of prayer, we'll close in a word of prayer. Again, you have the opportunity to bow your heads if you'd like to. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you, Lord, for today. Thank you, Lord, for the discussions that we've had. Thank you, Lord, for us to keep in mind the ratepayers and the community that we work for. In your most loving name, Lord, look after everyone as they travel their separate ways. In your precious name, amen.